The air in Karen Reed's sprawling colonial and Cedar Hollow smelled like expensive lemon polish and the kind of passive-aggressive silence that could choke a person. I sat at the long mahogany table, trying to remember the breathing exercises my therapist taught me back in Seattle. The crystal glasses chimed like tiny alarms every time someone moved. The roast glistened under the chandelier like it had been Botoxed. And I was the glitch in the otherwise flawless HOA postcard. Ryan has always been the ambitious one, Karen said, her voice smooth as butter over a hot knife. She beamed at Tessa, her future daughter-in-law, while completely ignoring me. Even as a boy, he led every team, every committee. No surprise he's vice president of sales now. Ryan flashed that easy golden boy smile that had gotten him out of HOA fines and bad grades his whole life. Karen flicked her gaze my way for half a second. The kind of look you give a weed poking through perfect sod. Some children just have that spark. Others, well, they're happy to be spectators. I tightened my grip on the wine stem until my knuckles went white. 10-9-8, do not react. Giving Karen Reed a reaction was like feeding a stray raccoon. She'd keep coming back bolder. My father Darren stared at his plate like it held the answers to life. He'd learned decades ago that silence was the only survival skill in this house. Sophia made it down from Seattle, he offered quietly. That's a long flight. Karen waved her hand like I'd merely walked in from the garage. Oh, please. It's not like she had anything important to reschedule. Just Seattle and just Sophia. The room sealed shut in that vacuum silence I knew too well. Tessa, sharp-eyed and sharp-jawed, watched the exchange like a lawyer spotting a lie in deposition. She didn't smile politely and change the subject. Instead, her hand slipped under the tablecloth. The soft glow of her phone lit her lap. So, Sophia, Tessa cut in, voice casual, but eyes calculating. Ryan says you live in the Pacific Northwest. What keeps you up there, work? Karen laughed, that terrifyingly polite tinkle. Oh, Tessa, darling, don't bore yourself. Sophia does paperwork, office admin things, filing, sorting. You know how some people just need a quiet little job to get by? That's our Sophia. She prefers the background, less demanding. The insult was gift-wrapped in faux concern. I started to answer, but Karen steamrolled again. She works for some bureau checking receipts or something. Right? Soft. I'll let the word hang. Something like that. Tessa didn't move on. Her thumb moved with purpose. What's the name of the company again? Vesperline, I said softly. Vesperline Integrity Bureau. Karen scoffed. Sounds made up. Probably a temp agency. The silence stretched. Silverware scraped. The grandfather clock ticked like a countdown. Then Tessa froze. Her shoulders pulled back. She scrolled once, twice, when she looked up at me across the centerpiece of white lilies. The look wasn't pity. It was shock laced with respect and a flicker of fear. She had found a Seattle Times article, The Auditor Who Dismantled the Bayside HOA Ponzi. She had found my Senate testimony on nonprofit and HOA financial structuring. Senior Forensic Investigator. Certified Fraud Examiner. And then, the connection. My name cross-referenced in a preliminary inquiry file regarding the Cedar Hollow HOA Community Fund. Karen was still pouring wine, oblivious that the ground under her perfect heels had turned to quicksand. Anyway, for the wedding I was thinking we import orchids from Thailand, Karen chirped, completely unaware. 5 or 10,000 more. But local florists just don't have the vision. Don't you agree? Tessa didn't answer about orchids. She placed her phone face down on the tablecloth with a soft click that sounded like a gavel. She stared at Karen the way a prosecutor stares at a caught liar. Mrs. Reed, she said quietly but carrying weight. Do you have any idea what your daughter actually does for a living? The silence that followed was the exact frequency I had lived in for 18 years, the quiet panic before Karen yelled cut, and reset the scene. Growing up in Cedar Hollow wasn't just growing up in a family. It was living inside a production. Karen Reed was director, producer, and star of the lifelong HOA Perfection show. She baked cookies for new neighbors before the moving truck finished parking, not out of kindness, but to set the narrative first. She ran the book clubs, the charity drives, and every HOA meeting with an iron fist wrapped in pastel cardigans. Ryan was the co-star, born with golden retriever charm that made people forgive his late dues and overlook his speeding through the neighborhood. And me? I was the extra, the background character necessary for census data, but otherwise useless to the plot. I remember being 10, coming home with a statewide math competition certificate, gold foil seal. First place. Karen was on the phone chopping carrots for the fall HOA Harvest Festival. Not now. Sophia. The tent company is incompetent. I held up the paper. She sighed without looking. Put it there. I'll look later. It sat 3 days, then got buried under catalogs and buried deeper under her disappointment. Meanwhile, that Saturday, Ryan had a soccer game in the rain. The entire Reed apparatus mobilized. Cooler. Triangle sandwiches. 2-hour drive. Karen screamed his name until she was hoarse. That's my boy. I stood under a broken umbrella, shivering, realizing love in this family wasn't a right. It was currency, and I was bankrupt. My father wasn't a movie villain. He didn't yell. He simply disappeared mentally while staying physically present. He had mastered the art of reading the newspaper while the storm raged around him. I used to think he was a victim too, until I realized his silence was a choice. He saw how Karen edited me out of every neighborhood story she told at block parties. "You're too sensitive," he'd say when I came to him crying after one of her lashings. "Just keep the peace. Sophia, don't make a scene." Keeping the peace meant letting Karen Reed rewrite reality. Everything was a stage: the Parent-Teacher Association, the Garden Club, the HOA board. She needed everything to look right. I was the glitch, too serious, too quiet, too observant. "Smile. Sophia," she'd hiss before we walked into any meeting. "You look like you're at a funeral. People will think you're unhappy." "I am unhappy," I said once at 14. She stopped in the driveway and gave me the coldest flat disappointment. "Then fake it. Nobody likes a sour girl. You're embarrassing the family." That was the refrain. Don't embarrass the family. But the cracks were there. That's why I became an auditor. I learned to spot the difference between what people said and what the numbers showed before I even knew the term forensic accounting. The pivotal moment came at 16. Karen was running the Coats for Kids drive, a smaller version of the massive HOA fundraisers she ran now. Piles of receipts on the dining table. She complained the math gave her a migraine. "I can help," I offered, still stupidly craving approval. She pushed the ledger at me. "Fine. Add up the vendor column and don't mess it up." I love the numbers. They were clean. 2 plus 2 was always 4. But as I reconciled receipts with bank slips, I saw it. Recurring withdrawals, checks to cash, checks to a consultant with the same last name as her favorite salon tech. The fund was short nearly $2,000. I walked into the living room holding the ledger. "Mom, I think there's a mistake." She didn't look away from the TV. "The math is tricky." "No," I said. "The money is missing." This check to S. "Miller, isn't that the lady who does your highlights?" The room went dead silent. Karen turned slowly. The look wasn't shame. It was fury, the look of a predator realizing the prey had teeth. She snatched the ledger. "How dare you accuse me after everything I do for this community?" I stammered I wasn't accusing, just pointing out numbers. She called for Darren. "Your daughter is trying to destroy this family's reputation." My father sighed. "Sophia, apologize to your mother." When I tried to explain, he raised his voice, the only time I ever heard it. "Stop causing trouble. Why can't you just be normal?" Something inside me snapped quietly. The beam holding up my hope for this family broke. I spent the next 2 years as a ghost. I stopped showing report cards. I stopped trying. I saved every babysitting dollar, studied until my eyes burned, and plotted my escape. When I graduated high school, there was no party, just a chain restaurant where Karen complained about service. 2 months later, I packed my beat-up sedan while she gossiped with Mrs. Gable next door. Finally, I heard her say, "Honestly, it's a relief. She's always been difficult. No direction, no drive. She's just a nobody. She'll be back in 6 months begging for money." I didn't cry. I got in the car, turned the key, and made a vow to the windshield. I will never come back. And if I do, I will own the place. Seattle was everything Cedar Hollow wasn't: gray, wet, and blissfully indifferent to who my mother was. I worked 2 jobs, slept 4 hours, ate instant noodles. But every rent check I paid with my own money felt like power no HOA Gala could buy. I fell into forensic accounting by accident in a business class. The professor droned about market forces. I saw the numbers didn't add up. I raised my hand and dismantled the case study on the spot. The professor blinked. "You have a very suspicious mind. Have you considered fraud examination?" Turns out living in a house built on lies made me excellent at spotting them. I devoured the curriculum, got my CPA and CFE on the first try, while Ryan charmed clients on golf courses. I traced wire transfers through offshore accounts. Vesperline Integrity Bureau hired me after a 10-minute interview. "You're hungry," my boss Sarah said. "People with safety nets don't look at details. You look like you expect the floor to drop." Good, that's how you catch them. My first big case made my name. A nonprofit claiming to build wells was actually routing money to the director's brother-in-law through shell construction companies. I testified in federal court, projected the graphs, and the jury convicted in 3 hours. After that, my name appeared in journals, podcasts, conferences. If you typed Sophia Reed fraud into a search engine, you got pages of results. I sent the family a link to the national magazine feature, The Human Lie Detector. They opened it. They read it. They never replied. That was the moment the last string snapped. They ignored my success because it challenged their narrative that I was useless. Karen Reed did not tolerate challenges to her narrative. Last Tuesday, the rain hammered the glass walls of our Seattle conference room. We were wrapping a quarterly review when Sarah slid a thick manila folder across the table. Anonymous tip line, significant documentation, bank statements, emails, classic skimming but sophisticated structure. Priority case. I sighed. I'm booked solid. She didn't blink. It's a charitable foundation focused on community development, scholarships, food banks. Director funneling donations into personal expenses via fake vendor invoices. I flipped the cover. Entity name, Cedar Hollow, HOA Community Fund. Registered agent, Karen Reed. Location, my childhood address. The air left my lungs. Sarah noticed. Conflict, my hand clamped the folder. No conflict. I could be objective. Technically a lie. I was about to be surgical. Are you sure? She pressed. You look pale. I know the area. It'll help. She studied me, then nodded. It's yours. But this looks ugly. $500,000 over 10 years. Whoever's running it is arrogant. Definitely arrogant, I said. That night, Ryan texted. Hey, Soph. Long time. Mom's throwing a big engagement dinner for me and Tessa next weekend. She actually said you should come. Tessa wants to meet the whole family. Think you can make it? I looked at the file. Then the text. The universe doesn't usually align this precisely. I typed back. I'll be there. I wasn't going as a sister. I was going as the auditor conducting a site visit. Driving the rental into Cedar Hollow felt like entering a memory scrubbed with bleach. Oak trees wrapped in fairy lights year-round. Lawns manicured to millimeter perfection. Every house obeying the exact shade of beige approved by the HOA covenants Karen herself wrote. I pulled into the driveway. The colonial loomed with white pillars that screamed bank more than home. Karen opened the door before I knocked. Cream cashmere and pearls. Hair helmeted in blonde defiance. "Sophia," she said without hugging. "You made it. I was telling your father you'd probably miss your flight. You were always so scattered." "Hello, Mother." I stepped inside. The house smelled of beeswax and lilies. We passed the display cabinet, now featuring a sleek poster. 15th Annual Cedar Hollow HOA Community Gala. Chairperson Karen Reed. "We raised over $200,000 last year," she beamed. Hand on the glass. "The mayor said without my leadership the community center would have closed. Every penny managed by me. 200,000. I repeated it neutrally. "That's a lot of money." "It's a fortune," she corrected. "And people don't understand the burden of leadership." Tessa stepped forward. Navy dress, professional yet stylish. Firm handshake. "You must be Sophia. Ryan talks about you." Her eyes scanned me the way mine scanned spreadsheets. In the sunroom, Karen bustled, playing perfect hostess. She swung a heavy leather tote off her shoulder to clear the coffee table. The bag tipped. Lipstick, planner, mints, and a stack of envelopes spilled. One window envelope slid near my chair. Return address, Prestige Logistics Event Support. P.O. Box 492, Brentwood. My breath hitched. Prestige Logistics, the exact shell company Vesperline had flagged. Invoice the HOA $40,000 for event consultation that volunteers supposedly handled. No website, no office. Owner a man dead 3 years. Karen snatched the envelope and shoved it back. Crisis averted, she smiled at me. "You're being very quiet. Sophia, I hope you're not going to be sullen all evening. We're here to celebrate Ryan and Tessa." "I'm not sullen." I forced a smile. "I'm just observing." "Well, stop observing and start participating." Dinner in 10. She walked out swinging the bag that now contained physical proof of wire fraud. Tessa's eyes met mine for a split second. Recognition. She knew something was in that bag. I knew exactly what. The transition to the dining room was choreographed by decades of hierarchy. Karen carried the roast like a holy relic. Ryan, Darren, Tessa, then me. For the first 20 minutes, the dinner was aggressively pleasant. Karen issued prompts like a dictator. "Ryan, tell your father about the promotion." He launched into the story. Hands animated. Karen beamed at Tessa. "You must be relieved marrying into stability." Tessa smiled tightly. "We're splitting the down payment. Equal partners." Karen's fort paused. Annoyance flickered, then vanished behind patronizing indulgence. Tessa cut through the monologue. "Sophia," the name landed heavy. "We've been talking about Ryan's job and the wedding for half an hour. I want to hear about you. You're in finance, right?" Karen interrupted with a light breaking glass laugh. "Oh, Tessa, don't put her on the spot. Sophia's life is very quiet. She likes it that way." Tessa kept her eyes on mine. "I'm sure it's interesting. You're in risk assessment." Karen scoffed again. "Patterns? See, she tries to make bookkeeping sound mysterious. It's data entry. Someone has to type the numbers." Sophia has always been a bit grand in her imagination. I watched Ryan. This was the moment a brother says, "Actually, Mom, she's senior forensic investigator." He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, Soph is the organized one. Keeps the lights on for the office." He diminished me to keep the peace. I said calmly, "I actually work in risk assessment. I analyze patterns." Karen's smile tightened. "Delusion. But we love her anyway. We just manage expectations." Sophia is very sensitive. The roast tasted like cardboard. I cut another piece of potato and watched the feedback loop. Karen projected perfection. Ryan reflected it. Darren absorbed tension. And I was the variable that never fit. Tessa glanced at me repeatedly, trying to reconcile the woman in the expensive blazer with the story she'd been fed. Under the table, her phone glowed again. Then Tessa asked the question that cracked the script. Mrs. Reed, do you have any idea what your daughter actually does for a living? Karen's plastic smile froze. Tessa continued, voice steady. Because I just Googled Sophia Reed and found articles about her dismantling major HOA fraud schemes. Senior forensic investigator at Vesperline. Expert witness. And right now, she's the lead on an active inquiry into the Cedar Hollow HOA Community Fund. Karen's laugh came out brittle. This is incredibly rude. You come into my home, eat my food, and accuse me of federal crimes. Tessa placed the phone down. It's not about class. Karen, it's about the law and where the money for this wedding is coming from. The bag with the Prestige Logistics envelope sat on the side chair like a bomb. Karen stood, knocking her chair back. Ryan, are you going to let her speak to your mother this way? Ryan looked from Tessa holding truth to Karen demanding loyalty. For 38 years, he had been the peacekeeper. Mom, if everything is above board, just explain it. Who is Prestige Logistics? Karen's voice rose. I don't have to explain myself to my children. She pointed at me. Sophia did this. She came back on purpose to ruin your happiness. She's jealous. She's a sad, lonely woman who wants to drag us all down. I stayed perfectly still. I'm not jealous. I'm working. Karen barked a harsh laugh. You call this work? Sabotaging your brother? You're a cancer in this family. Darren finally spoke. Voice rusty. Karen, stop. She screamed at him. She's the enemy. I reached into my bag and set my tablet in the center of the table, pushing aside the potatoes. I tapped it open to the draft preliminary fraud review. Confidential. Subject: Cedar Hollow HOA Community Fund. Status: active inquiry. I didn't come home to eat dinner, I said clearly. I came because the IRS and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation will be asking these same questions in 2 weeks. And they won't be as polite as Tessa. I swiped to the flowchart. Money leaving the HOA donor account into Prestige Logistics, then straight into personal accounts. On October 14th last year, the HOA paid Prestige $15,000 for lighting consultation. 2 days later, Prestige transferred $12,000 to a personal account. Grant, Ryan, check the date on your Rolex. The one Mom gave you for making vice president. Ryan looked at his wrist. October 17th. The color drained from his face. Happy anniversary, brother. You're wearing $12,000 of stolen HOA dues. Karen let out a sob that wasn't remorse. It was a cornered animal realizing the cage door clicked shut. It was a gift. He deserves it. Tessa's voice was flat with revulsion. It's the same account. It's embezzlement. Wire fraud. Mail fraud. Karen lunged for the tablet. You can't. You're my daughter. I leaned in. The report is still a draft. I can recommend full prosecution, 10 to 15 years, or voluntary self-disclosure and restitution. Confession, full repayment, immediate resignation from all financial authority. Suspended sentence. No jail, just shame and poverty. Karen weighed prison versus public humiliation. She reached across the table, palm up. We can fix this. I can put the money back before Monday. Please, for the family, for Ryan's wedding. I tapped the screen. It's cloud synced. Every edit logged. Sarah already has read-only access. Her face twisted. You set me up. No. I just turned on the lights. Ryan's voice cracked. We can fix this. Mom pays it back. We sell the lake house. Delete the file. I looked at my brother. It's not just about the money. It's about liability. You're listed as secretary of the board for 6 years. You signed the annual reports. Ignorance isn't a defense. Tessa stood. I can't marry into this. My license could be reviewed just for knowing. Karen switched to desperate manipulation. Tessa, darling, think about the wedding, the babies. Don't be cold like Sophia. Be the bigger person. Tessa laughed bitterly. You don't care about family. You want a human shield. She picked up her phone, the red recording light still pulsing. For the record, Karen Reed, did you knowingly use Cedar Hollow HOA funds for personal expenses without board knowledge or consent? Karen stared at the pulsing red light. Her mouth opened, closed. The dam broke, not dignified weeping, but ugly, gasping panic. I had to keep up appearances. The gala costs more every year. Flowers, band, catering. Donors expect magic, and magic is expensive. Mascara ran in black rivers. I did it for you, Ryan, so you could be proud to be a Reed. Ryan stood slowly like an old man. Stop saying you did it for me. You did it so you could brag. You made me a prop. You made me an accomplice. His voice rose to a roar I'd never heard. Answer the question. Did you take the money? Karen flinched. Yes, but I was going to pay it back. I tapped the tablet. You said that in 2019. Then 2020. It was never a loan. It was a salary you paid yourself for a volunteer position and hid because you knew it was theft. Darren walked over. For 40 years, he had folded himself small. Now he looked down at her. I can't tell them you're a good person anymore. Karen, my silence helped you do this. Karen hissed at all of us. You're all against me after everything I've done. I placed the tablet in front of her. Here's reality. You have 12 hours. Liquidate jewelry, the house, the lake cabin. Wire $642,000 back into the HOA account by 9 a.m. Tomorrow. Draft a resignation letter effective immediately, citing health reasons. Never sign another check for any community fund. If your name appears on so much as a bake sale flyer, I reopen the file. Karen whispered, You're destroying me. If I file the report, they'll know for sure. You can keep your freedom or your pride. Not both. Tessa stopped the recording and saved it to the cloud. We're done here. She looked at Ryan. You're a good man, but a weak one. I can't build a life on a rotting foundation. She yanked the engagement ring off, threw it at his chest, and walked out. Ryan sank into a chair and wept. Karen reached across the table one last time. Sophia, please. I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at the hand that had pushed me away for 36 years. It means I learned exactly what kind of person I never want to be. I picked up my bag. You call me a nobody. You told the neighbors I'd never amount to anything. Look around. Ryan is falling apart. Dad is broken. You are a criminal. I'm the only one standing straight. The only one not afraid of the light. I walked out without slamming the door, just the soft, decisive click of the latch. I drove past the Welcome to Cedar Hollow sign without looking back. I didn't know if she would pay, if Ryan would recover, if Darren would leave. Those were their variables. I had balanced the ledger. For the first time in 36 years, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt real. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a nobody from Cedar Hollow became the one who finally enforced the only rule that ever mattered. Don't steal from the people who trusted you. Sweet, sweet HOA justice.